You may see a button on your screen that you need to click to move forward. And with that, I will say good evening. I'm Trudy Murata from Springfield, Virginia, and I'm a volunteer community ambassador with AARP Virginia. I want to welcome you to our Downsizing and Decluttering webinar this evening, and thank you for joining us. The Global Council on Brain Health recommends declutter your life in their report on mental well-being. And a recent survey found that the #1 thing that impedes people in leaving their homes or getting health care into their homes is that they simply have too much stuff. So we applaud you for deciding to spend some time with us this evening and to learn new strategies and to share your decluttering tips as well. The goal of this program is to help our participants gain a general understanding of why stuff is so important to some people and learn practical, easy to follow, that's not easy for me to say tonight, easy to follow downsizing and decluttering tips. In the reminder for today's session, we included a link to download the slide presentation, and in the follow-up email that you'll get at the end or tomorrow or at the end of the program will include many of the resources mentioned here, plus more. You'll find that this program is very interactive. There will be lots of great ideas and recommendations from other participants in the chat box. We will edit the chat box and send a copy of it in that follow-up email tomorrow. So if you have ideas to share, please feel free to share them in the chat box. But remember, our chat box is the judgment-free zone. So if you agree with a recommendation, that's great. If that recommendation doesn't work for you, that's okay too. And now on to the program. My co-host tonight is Sarah Jacobs. Sarah's going to help me keep an eye on the chat box and the Q&A section. And we are thrilled to be joined this evening by Genesis Webb. Like me and Sarah, Genesis is an AARP volunteer community ambassador, and we're very fortunate to have her on our team. When she's not volunteering with AARP, Genesis is a nurse practitioner. She is passionate about geriatric health outcomes and specializes in urologic medicine for our nation's veterans. She completed her Bachelor of Science in Nursing at Old Dominion University in Norfolk and her Master's of Science in Nursing at George Mason University in Fairfax, Virginia. She holds a national board certification with the American Association of Nurse Practitioners as an adult geriatric nurse practitioner. In her free time, she enjoys planning, reading, traveling, and is committed to community service. Genesis voluntarily conducts downsizing and decluttering webinars on behalf of AARP, and hopefully the information that we cover and the resources that we share tonight will help you make informed decisions to downsize and declutter your belongings. So with that, please give a warm Zoom welcome to Genesis Webb. Genesis, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Trudy. I'm so happy to be here with you all tonight. Welcome to the Downsizing and Decluttering You Can't Take It With You session. I look forward to facilitating tonight's conversation. And like Trudy said, please feel free to use the chat box. This is a judgment-free zone, and we're excited to give this presentation tonight. So we're going to go ahead and get started with a fun picture here. We all know this familiar icon as King Tut. And I want you to remember this picture, remember King Tut later on, because we will have more to say about him later. We do have a couple of key goals for our session tonight. We want to help us all gain a general understanding of why stuff is so important to some people. And we want to learn practical, easy to follow downsizing and decluttering tips. But we also want to have fun tonight. We may share a few laughs. As Trudy said, this is a judgment-free zone. For housekeeping items, this is the virtual setting. So we do have the chat box available in the Q&A session for questions and answers later on in the session. Before we begin, remember to keep your microphone on mute and know that the raise your hand feature is not available in this session, okay? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started. In 2011, it marked the beginning of a large age wave with over 10,000 people turning 65 every day in the United States for the next 20 years. 15% of America is over 65 right now. And in 40 years, 33% of America will be over 65. This is important to know because this will be the largest, most powerful buying group in America. This may be the last time we will have 4 generations still alive at the same time. For our older Americans, the age gap between their parents and themselves is about 20 years right now. And for our Gen Xers, they are 30 to 35 years older than their kids. The 2 oldest generations have the most stuff, and both generations want to pass it down to the youngest 2 generations. However, we have to pay attention to our differences. We are distinctly different generations, socially and financially. We want to look at some differences between different generations, and I will need your help and your feedback in this question here. So when we're looking at the greatest generation or the silent generation and our baby boomers, does anybody know an event that symbolizes the lives of the silent generation or the greatest generation? You can feel free to put your answers in the chat box.
And our first responses are World War II, the Depression.
Yes.
And that's what I'm getting from our group. Oh, yeah, that's true too. The Korean War would also fall into that category as well.
You guys are already a super smart group. World War II, the Great Depression, and you're right, the Korean War. So that's a big difference. That's a big event that symbolizes the lives of that generation. What event is it for the baby boomers? What's a major event that you guys can think of for the baby boomer generation?
And for baby boomers, we have the Vietnam War, Woodstock, Watergate, Elvis, someone after my own heart on that one. Okay. The space race and the moon landing.
Yes, those are wonderful. Absolutely. So as you guys can see, there's this obvious difference in time from Woodstock era to the World War II era. And it's important to know that going into this topic, just to help better understand what our stuff and what our experiences mean to us and how that plays a role in decluttering. So you may ask yourself, why does all of this matter? Well, we have the largest group ever needing healthcare. 2 of the generations attach pride to their possessions historically, and we're facing a shortage of affordable housing. Healthcare costs are rising, costs of living are rising altogether. The number one thing that impedes people from leaving their home and or getting healthcare or certain things they need into their home is the stuff that they presently already have and that block that it can create. So we want to help you guys manage that and work towards a better option for you. A research study that was done by Good Run interviewed 1,000 caretakers, and the thing that caused the most stress for most individuals was their stuff. We have all worked so hard for all of our stuff, and the cold, hard reality is many of our kids and their children don't want it. The problem is no one wants our stuff. And that can take a minute to kind of sink in and process, but it's something that you'll have to think about when you're taking away what we learned today. Many times, no one wants our stuff. So what do we do about that? Well, the goal is to look at some tips. How do we actually put this into action? Downsizing and decluttering. We're going to look at the top 10 tips as to how we got rid of our stuff so that we can help you. Starting with number 1, we want you guys to include everyone in your home. This is not just a you problem. The goal is to show how big of a job downsizing can really be. You're not alone. Husbands, grandkids, make it fun, make it a family event. I do have another question for you guys that's interactive. I want to know how long you've lived in your homes, but we're going to go in increments here. Can you raise your hand if you've lived in your home for more than 5 years? Okay, we've had lots and lots of hands. Okay, what about if you've lived in your home for more than 10 years? Raise your hand. Lots of hands. What about 15 years? Raise your hand if you've lived in your home more than 15 years. Oh, look at that. What about 20 years? Raise your hand if you've lived in your home more than 20 years. Wonderful. Excellent. I see about 75 hands or so. Raise your hand if you've lived in your home for more than 30 years. Good. About 50 or so, 50 to 60 hands raised there. What about more than 40 years? Okay, we have a little over, right at around 30 people or so. And finally, raise your hand if you've lived in your home for 50 plus years. We have about close to 30 hands raised. That's amazing. Some of us have lived in our home for more than 50 years. So do you guys think if you've lived in your home more than 40, 50 years that you can downsize and declutter by yourself in one weekend? We need help getting this task done. Even if you prefer to do it by yourself, it's important to include everyone in your home or around you. It's important not to exclude your spouse just because you think they won't want to help. Give everyone you can, including grandkids, great-grands, a chance to help you if possible. For tip number 2, this is a helpful tool, the 10-minute sweep. What is it exactly? Well, this is the best way to clean a room. Instead of looking at the room as a whole, which can be very overwhelming, we suggest looking at it as a 2-foot by 2-foot area. I always compare this to losing 50 pounds. If you try to do this in 1 week, it really doesn't work well. But if you focus on 1 pound at a time, it can work. So if you have everyone in the family, because remember in our first tip, we're trying to include everyone we can to help us. If you have everyone in the family, pick a 2-foot by 2-foot area and everyone cleans for 10 minutes. Not more, not less, just 10 minutes at a time. Maybe before your favorite TV show comes on, and you stay consistent for about 5 nights a week, every week, you will see that your home will start to look cleaner, feel cleaner after a few weeks. The goal is not to overwhelm you guys. You have to take it step by step. So this 10-minute sweep can be a really good tool to use. So the next tip is unpacking bags. Okay, I need your interaction again. What is the proper way to unpack a bag after vacation? Let us know in the chat what you think. We'd love to hear your responses. What do you guys think is the best way to unpack a bag after vacation?
As soon as they get home, right away, dump everything in the washing machine. The dirty clothes bag goes straight to the washing machine. Always do the laundry.
That's good. That's a good one.
One of them was interesting that I hadn't really thought about. I got to scroll back to it to find it. And it was something along the lines of, if you didn't wear it, you may not need it. You should throw it away.
Hey, we're going to get there. That's a good point. That's so true.
Yeah.
Those are good answers. You guys are pretty good. You unpack your bags right away and get on that laundry. That's good. We often hear two answers. The first answer is immediately when you get home, and the second answer is right before the next trip. So it just depends on your personality, but the same holds true for things like grocery bags. When you get home, it's important to unpack them immediately. Don't put the bag down. If you put it down, it will not get put away. So always try to unpack your bags. Treat your vacation bags like you do your grocery. You put it away, you don't want it to spoil. So we need to try to treat that in the same sense from our bags when we go on vacation or when we go over to someone's home. The next tip is that every item needs to have a home in your house. That helps with clutter. So we don't let stuff you bring in your home stack up. If everything has a place where it should go, that can help you. Groceries go in the kitchen, tools go in the garage, clothes go in the closet, which brings us to another rule that's important to think about. Equal in, equal out. So when you bring something new into your home, something of the same size should come out. Obviously, this isn't a perfect science, but if you can look at your home, if you're having clutter issues, and you bring something in new, the goal is to try to find something of the same size that you can take out. And then another note is that just because the item is on sale does not mean your home is bigger. So I need that tip as well for myself. This is one of my favorite tips in this session, and that is the 4-pile sort. So as you guys can see, the 4-pile sort is keep, sell, donate, and trash. When you're sorting your items, you want to break things into 4 piles. The keep, sell, donate, and trash. It's important to put the sell and donate pile next to you. So if you're sitting down on the floor and you have all these items around you, the sell and donate should be closest to you, and the keep pile should be very far away. It's amazing to see how much you don't keep if you have to walk all the way over to the other side of the room to keep it. So this is another fun but good tool to use that can help you sort. This is a really important one to me, just because I think about my own family and my mom and my grandparents. Distribute your legacy items now. I know that can be controversial, but distributing your legacy items means you no longer are telling your loved ones that you will give them something when you're gone. So many times we hear people say that we want to wait to give something away to our children when they pass away. The reality is you should give it to them now. Giving it away now lets you enjoy seeing them use it, and it empties your home faster. Make sure if you do this, it's something you really want to get rid of now. And if you don't, then stop saying you will. Don't be surprised by the results. Lots of times we see people say they are going to give a piano away when they die. And when we push giving away the legacy item now, they're not even ready to give it up. So if it is a true legacy item that you want to distribute, but you're holding on to it, think about giving it to them now so you can see them enjoy it in real time. For tip number 7, punting. So punting is when you convince, sometimes even through guilt, the next generation that they should take an item that they may not want to take. We often have furniture that we kept from our parents because we knew they would be upset if we got rid of it, but we never actually wanted to keep it out of obligation. And so the next generations, the ones that are coming, that are continuing to come after the millennials, Gen X and those that are to come, I don't think they're going to feel that obligation. They simply do not want it. And how do you find out if they want it? You just have to ask them. If a person says they don't want it, then I wouldn't say you just don't know what you want yet and then save it for them. If they don't want it, hear what they are saying to you. They do not want it, and it's our job to respect that. So we recommend selling or donating the item to someone that does. Many of you already are doing this, but this is just another reiteration of donating. Donating is so important. The reality is there's always someone else that needs it more than we do. We want to focus on finding a place you want to give away something to versus how much it's worth. Our nation was built on service, and the goal isn't to focus necessarily on money. We want to focus on giving to people that truly need and places that donate for immediate use. Some examples of donation could include Dress for Success. The Dress for Success is a good donation tool for clothes. Soles for Souls, SOLES for Souls, SOULS. That's a good shoe donation program. Tech for Troops is great for electronics. And Catholic charities, women's shelters, Goodwill, some of the major big names, those are good examples of where you can donate your items to. Excuse me. The next tip is to be realistic. Clothing, including myself, we often are not very realistic about our items. The picture you see is a picture of an adult man's closet. To the left here, we have a size 28. Moving on to the right, we have a size 30s, we have 32s and a bunch of 34s, and finally a pair of 36. And, we may say, why do we do this to ourselves? There are 20 pairs of pants here. He admits he can only fit 3 of them. Why are we holding on to them? And mentally, it may be because we feel we may get back into them one day. The reality is oftentimes we will not. It's okay to give away the 28s, the 30s, and the 32s. Food is the same way. Those dates that say they're expired on seasonings, believe it or not, your seasonings can expire, and food in your fridge and your pantry, those expiration dates are real. So why do we hold on to food? Well, I know why I do, and why many of us do, is because our parents told us about real hunger, and there are people starving. So food dating started back in 1984. If there isn't a date on your food, that means that it's over 35 years old and it's expired. And another hint, if you've moved twice and you've taken the food with you both times, this includes seasonings, it's probably expired. So you may want to look into your pantries, look at your seasonings, look at your longstanding items and see if they've expired. Of course, in your fridge, look inside and see if it's expired. That's how you can declutter your kitchen space or your living space where you eat. Tip number 10. This is a really, really important tip, and that's paring down on paper and photos. When we talk about paper, we're talking about things like mail, old documents and bills, and photos. So we save the best for last, which is paper. Paper is the hardest because it represents potential contacts, potential friendships or lost friendships, potential phone numbers, monetary opportunities, potential memories. It's all about potential. And we naturally don't want to lose those things, so we hold on to them. We recommend shredding all mail if you have a shredder. If you do not have a shredder, we recommend putting a cardboard box in the trunk of your vehicle for storage and sorting mail at the source. Take it out of the mailbox, rip it up into small pieces in the box, put that in the box in the trunk of your car. This way, when it's full, you drive it to a free shredding place and they take the box for shredding. If you put the box on the floor or inside your home, it will never get taken to the shredder. Pictures are another really big part, and you simply don't have to save all of the pictures. If you don't know the name of all the people in the picture, you may want to think about, should I keep this? The best tip we have, because pictures are so sacred, keep 100 pictures you like and write out the name and stories attached to the people in those stories. At the end of the day, this isn't about the picture, it's about the people and the emotions that come behind those stories. You are most likely the only person who does know or remember everyone in the picture. So it's a good habit to write down, those memories and those names. The one thing the family does care about is the stories. I say keep 100+ pictures in a few gallon-sized bags, write the story on the back of the picture, and maybe consider getting rid of the rest. The main thing you should remember from these last 25 minutes or so is about the stories. It's about the emotions. It's about the people. It's not about the stuff. So we want you to celebrate the stories and celebrate what's happening in real time with your families, but focus on decluttering and getting rid of that stuff that we've attached our emotions to. So I know this was fast and furious when it comes to the tips, but the biggest thing we want you guys to take away is that you can't take it with you. If you remember at the start of the presentation, there was a picture of one person that did take his stuff with him. The photo on the left is what was found in King Tut's garage. He couldn't take it with him, and neither can we. So I know that was a lot of information at once, and we do want to hear from you guys. So I'm going to turn it over to Trudy for any questions that you guys may have.
Thanks, Genesis. Good job tonight. And good job with our audience members as well. You've been fast and furious with some of the suggestions. Genesis, one of the questions that came in was with regard to getting rid of both prescription and really non-prescription medication, expired and not. Can you address that?
Yes. So I usually throw this in somewhere, and it's kind of near and dear to me because of what I do. So depending on where you live, and we have obviously a wide array of states here with us tonight, prescriptive medications or non-prescriptive medications can be disposed of in like a pharmacy drop box type of setting. You can find these at your local pharmacies, whether that be CVS or Walgreens, major pharmacies, and even like mom or pop pharmacies may have pharmacy drop boxes. You can also sometimes find it at your local police station. And I know that there are certain days, depending on what the medication is, like if it's narcotics or something of that nature, that your local pharmacies will actually have a day dedicated to disposal. But if you look at your local pharmacy, if you go to your Walgreens or Wegmans or wherever you go, you can ask the pharmacist directly, do you guys have a medication drop box or a pill drop box for disposal? Most of them do. I believe some may charge a nominal fee, but I can't say that for every place. So it's definitely important to ask. And ultimately, that is something that you should dispose of. You should look in your medicine cabinets and look at the dates of your medication. If they've expired, try to dispose of them properly, which is through a Dropbox type of setting and not in your trash cans or in the toilet going into the ecosystem.
And Genesis, one other resource for them with regard to prescription medications is some local police stations also have a drug take back day, or I know here in Fairfax County, Virginia, they have a box that's supervised all the time that you can take it at any time as well.
Absolutely.
We have a question saying, could you talk just a little bit more about where to donate things?
Yes. So let's go back to that slide. So I know that during these sessions before, believe it or not, the best tips in regards to, local and national donation programs actually come from you guys. I know that for clothes, we have on our list Dress for Success. That's a big national program. Of course, your local areas, Goodwills, Salvation Army, women's shelters, your churches. It's probably right under your nose and you don't know it. And then for things like shoes, Souls for Souls is a good one. And some of the other places we just talked about, Tech for Troops for electronics. I think in a previous session, someone mentioned big name retailers like Best Buy do like a cell phone disposal. And I think for eyeglasses, a big one was Lions Club. That's a national program. But I'm sure some of you in the chat can tell us some ideas of where you donate your things. We'd love to hear from you guys because we can disseminate that information to all.
And that's why I said at the beginning that we will edit the suggestions in the chat box, and we will get those to you via email, hopefully tomorrow. If not tomorrow, the next day, but soon, I promise. We have one guest who says, I'm ready to start some major purging, but my husband is not.
Yes.
Hopefully your husband is listening on the other line or in the other room and knows that we're talking about him. Any suggestions or recommendations?
That's, we've had this before. We've seen this quite a bit where maybe one partner or your spouse is on board and the other is not. And it's tough. You obviously can't force someone to get on board, but I think if you help your spouse or your partner or your family member see where they can play a role. Maybe you can, I don't know, for me and my husband, he probably would be thrilled if I got rid of some clothes or shoes or something of that nature. So maybe if you start with just your belongings, and maybe he'll see, that decluttering that's being done, it's opened up your space and it's made that space more comfortable to live in. And you've also gotten rid of excess things that are just not needed in the home. Maybe if he sees you start doing it, it'll encourage him. I'm not sure, Trudy, what's your advice? I always like to ask her opinion on this. What would you do in that situation?
Well, I think the recommendation you suggested is sometimes if he sees you doing something, he may want to join in along those lines. I don't want to get involved in marital discord, so do the best you can with gently suggesting that maybe there's a couple of things that he might want to donate and take it from there. You do it one room at a time, you do it one person at a time, I think might be the best way to handle that.
Absolutely, yes.
Another question is, should you go room by room to sort stuff or by category?
That's a really good one. That's a good question. We haven't gotten a question like that. I would say it's going to depend on your personality. And the reason I say that is because if you can do category, that's good, but I think that it could still end up being a little bit overwhelming, because if you just say clothes and you're getting rid of your clothes, maybe your children or grandchildren's clothes, your husband's clothes, you have clothes kind of piled up in the attic or wherever the case may be. Now you're all over the house trying to declutter, and it can get very overwhelming fast. So the best tip, I think, is to focus on maybe one room at a time or one area at a time. So you could say the kitchen, it doesn't have to be the pantry, although I think it would be good to even break it down that far. But you could say the kitchen or things in the kitchen. I would do room by room, I think, because it just seeing one space cleared makes it seem more achievable, rather than if you have things all over the home, but they're in the same category, it may not feel like you're decluttering much at all.
Perfect. Genesis, I'm gonna answer one question for you. You may
Right.
have the answer, but I know that I do. There was a question in the chat about how long do you need to keep tax records? And my understanding is personal tax records need to be kept for 7 years, but you can double check that by going to irs.gov, and they have more specific information and probably more reliable than me on how long to keep tax information.
And I know another thing, Trudy, about that, and I know this is, my passion, as Trudy said before, is the geriatric population. So I know that what I'm about to say is like, okay, Genesis, you're going off the deep end here. But in regards to your taxes and really important documents, these days, if you can, try to scan them in to a computer system somewhere electronically, and maybe like a save file. The only reason I say that is because things happen, to documents, and unless you have them in a safe or something of that nature, you just don't want to lose that. So just something to think about is the electronic part, maybe scanning in really important documents into a file on your computers.
Perfect. What are some good sites for decluttering guidelines for 65 plus couple looking to move to a smaller home? AARP has some information, but are there any other sites that we can recommend to assist them? We're going to give them a lot of the resources. They may find it there.
Yes, because I don't know of any specific sites dedicated to decluttering, and I'm sure they're out there. But as far as being able to recommend anything, I wouldn't want to give a recommendation that hasn't been vetted properly. So I don't know of a specific site, but I do know that when you guys get the chat information and the resources that we found just by doing this session so many times, you'll get the links that are helpful for actual donation, and that will come up in that follow-up email.
Excellent. And Genesis, could you repeat the information that we gave them with regard to donating eyeglasses?
Yes. So in many local areas, but nationally, Lions Club, pretty sure it's spelled the regular way, Lion, right? Or is it Lyon? I don't remember, Trudy. I'm going to.
Yes, it's lions, like the animal.
Okay. Lions Club is a really good eyeglass donation that's pretty much nationally. I don't know if it's in every state, but I know that most states have access to a Lions Club. So that's for eyeglass donations. And you also, I think, can donate eyeglasses, of course, to your local charities.
And also your local optometrist usually has a box in their lobby or their office, and I think they donate them to the Lions Club as well.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to ask Sarah to jump in and help me for a second. Sarah, if you could help me run through the chat box. There looks like there's some questions in the chat box that I may not get to all of them, and if we have time, I'd like to get to as many as I can.
Sure. I see that the Lions Club has donation boxes at Four Eyes. There's a book recommendation, Clutter Free by Kathy Lip.
And as I say, any suggestions that are in the chat box, we'll give you that information in the follow-up email as well.
Martha Stewart has info on decluttering.
Yep. Perfect.
Here's a great question. I wondered if maybe one could address. I haven't seen this one before. Is there a hearing aid donation site that anyone's aware of?
It's a good question.
No, I'm
not familiar with that. I do know, depending on the audiologist or ENT doctors, they will accept donations from previous hearing aids, but I don't know that they use them for like to use as another hearing aid on another person, but they can like recycle the parts. So I know like your local ENT or audiologist maybe, but I'm sure that there's probably, a national donation that we just aren't aware of. So if anyone knows, please drop it in the chat box.
Yeah, a lot of times hearing aids are specifically molded to fit the individual's ears. So I'm not sure whether they're that's something that can be reused or recycled.
Yeah.
But we'll do some research on that and maybe have it available later.
And
we have
in
a
the
question
chat box, there's the link for hearing aid donations. So when we scrub the chat and send that out, everyone will have it.
Perfect. Super.
Hey.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yep.
Genesis, any suggestions on musical instruments? Where can I give away an old trumpet?
We have had this question before. Someone had like a very large piano that they wanted to give away. And, we kind of all put our heads together and thought about the fact that maybe local schools, like music programs, local colleges that have music programs would probably, willingly take it. Of course, we don't know specifically for your state, but that's the first place I would think of, is if a local music program, if you know of one in a local community college that has a music program, or a state college, may be an institution that would take used instruments.
And that's all I've got in the questions section. I think Sarah and I are both going to do a run through on the chat and see if we've got any other questions that showed up there, or say if you have a question that we haven't addressed, easiest way for me to see it is if you put it in the Q&A side, but I think we've covered pretty much everything. And
Yeah, there's just some suggestions coming in, which I know we'll get out when we scrub it, but
Right.
it looks like schools could take the musical instruments. They're recommending going, like, when there's like a community shred and you have a lot of paper, take it to the community shred. I know that I've been keeping my eyes open for that myself.
I really say in this presentation, you guys, that you're really the best resources out there as well. For in addition to AARP putting this on, you guys have a wealth of knowledge, and it can be great to share that with your community, but also just in this, session alone, we learned so much from you guys.
Exactly. Genesis, I do have another question that I just spotted. What about prosthetic and prosthetic devices?
That's a really good one. And I would definitely, you'd have to maybe look into your, it depends on the situation. Like, for an example, I work for the Department of Veterans Affairs. Our prosthetic kind of like, I guess, clinic, so to speak, they actually will take prosthetics that are donations, and they have a system in place for how to use those. So wherever your prosthetic was fitted or ordered from, I would directly ask them, because like hearing aids, that's a specific fit for your specific issue. Health concerns may be in place to make sure. So I'd go directly where you probably ordered that and see if, they have some type of program in place.
How do you power your mindset to keep going?
That's a good question.
That's a good question.
That's a very good question.
Yes, because it can become overwhelming so quickly. I think that, we in general as a people want to, get things done, get it taken care of so we can move on. But when you're thinking about decluttering, this is not a one-stop shop. This is not I'm going to declutter my home and that's it. It is a daily active process. Every single day when you're going to the store and you're just, I'm going to get this table, I'm going to buy a bike, you have to look at your home and say, hey, I have this table, we barely use it. It's just an end table sitting here in the living room. It's an extra, table. My mom gave it to me. It means something to me. Let me ask anyone in the family if they want it. Nobody wants it. That's a prime example. Every day you're really should be surveying your home for what no longer needs to be there. So it's a daily practice.
Exactly. I've been decluttering the same 2 rooms for the past 2.5 years. I decided at the beginning of the pandemic that I was going to use that time stuck in my house to declutter, and somehow stuff keeps getting put back into those rooms. So
but it's equal in, equal out. That's good, Trudy.
I try to set aside 1 day a week saying I'm going to spend at least 10 minutes in this room getting rid of something.
Yes.
And little by little.
The best way to do it, because it doesn't overwhelm you and it doesn't seem like such an overhauling task. I know for my daughter, it's easier when your kids are younger. She's young, she's 18 months. We're constantly changing her clothes out. She went from 6 months to 12 months to 18-month clothes within a matter of 3 months. It's the same concept in your home. It sounds overwhelming, but if you just think about that constant revolving in and out, equal in, equal out. Okay, I brought something in. Let me find some things I can get rid of. Literally, quarterly, maybe you look in your drawers, look in your closets, what can go? What did I not wear this summer that I thought I would wear? It needs to go. It's a constant revolving door.
Exactly. Exactly.
My aunt has a saying when you are looking at things and whether you buy it or not is, if you're not jumping for joy, don't buy it. So I guess you could apply the same thing to decluttering, which is you're looking at this and it's like, is it giving you joy? No, get rid of
Time to
it.
go. Yeah.
Exactly. So as say, there are lots of suggestions. You have been an absolutely fantastic group today. Lots of suggestions are coming up in the chat box, and as say, we will do our best to edit them quickly and get them to you in a follow-up email. And unless, Sarah, you've noticed anything that I've forgotten, I think we've addressed pretty much everything that is in there and given resources. So with that, I will say, on behalf of AARP Virginia, I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight and express our gratitude to Genesis for sharing her valuable time and her energy and her expertise with us this evening. We would love to get your feedback on tonight's program. Again, in the chat box, you'll see a link to a survey. If you would, take a moment to click on the link and spend a few moments giving us your feedback. As I mentioned earlier, we'll be sending follow-up emails with all the resources, an edited version of the chat box, and more, all the things that we mentioned today. Be sure to check out our calendar of events, of things that are coming up in the near future at www.aarp.org/virtual-VA. Again, that website is aarp.org/virtual-VA. We have had a ball sharing this information with you. Well, I've had fun. I don't know if
I did
everyone.
too.
So thank you so much. I also have to point out, I think you're our largest audience group that we've had so far during our virtual programs. So thank you so much for deciding to spend a little bit of time with us this evening. Hopefully our information has been helpful to you and you can start decluttering and downsizing your life as well. We have enjoyed giving you this presentation, sharing this information with you. Until the next time, stay safe, start decluttering, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you. Have a good evening.